Been raging in parts of the country during the last few weeks, mostly in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Now, foreign-owned businesses have been looted in Johannesburg, including local businesses, by the way. Now, that's in Pretoria as well and the East Rand, while in KZN, trucks were prevented from making deliveries. Well, critics have called for a firm response from government and the police and urged President Cyril Ramaphosa to put his foot down. Joining me in studio to look at the state of the ruling party and whether Ramaphosa is being undermined from within is political analyst Mcebisi Ndletyana. Prof, good morning to you.
Morning,
Thank you very much
very early in the morning
for making the time to speak to us. The ANC will constantly tell us that it's the leader of society. What puzzles me yesterday, let me begin here. The Justice Minister is standing outside Luthuli House. Ace Magashule is addressing a group of members from Limpopo who've marched, demanding that leaders in that province who are alleged to have been or to have benefited from VBS looted funds be reinstated, otherwise it'll be done by force. There is Ronald Lamola, standing there next to Ace Magashule. I thought he was going to say something about this case. Nothing. Instead, he's just standing there. There's more pressing matters in the country for the Justice Minister to be standing there. Am I being too harsh on him?
Well, I think you are expressing a popular sentiment that something has got to be done and be done quickly. There's been a lot of reporting about VBS, for instance. We have lots of monies. Just yesterday, there was a very comprehensive report on how Julius Malema's EFF got all sorts of monies from VBS. A number of ANC people got monies. But what you get are reports. You don't get a sense that there are investigations happening, or rather people are being charged. What you need is to see people in court. What you need to see is recovery of those monies. So there's a sense of impatience, especially because we have a volume, bombardment of this information, bad things that have happened, but there is no accountability. And yet, alongside that, you have a leadership that says things are changing. So there isn't a sense that things are changing, especially in terms of law and order. You have reports of bad things happening, but no, justice is not being done. At least that's what it seems like. And to see Lamola then standing outside is an epitome of a bystander watching when action has got to be done. I suppose that's the imagery that you are complaining about.
The xenophobic violence that we've seen in the country. Some, in fact, the caucus in Parliament defending the president, saying, no, he didn't take too long to respond. How has the response of the president, including his party, been in trying to provide leadership at a time of crisis like this?
Well, there are three things here I think one has got to keep in mind. One is that we have porous borders. So you have a burgeoning of immigration population in South Africa competing or going for the same resources as South Africans, scarce resources, right? So South Africans feel that in this race for these scarce resources, illegal immigrants or perhaps immigrants generally are getting ahead of them. In terms of jobs, in terms of public services, right? So people are expressing frustration, and that frustration is informed by their citizenry. Because citizens anywhere in the world feel that they should be given priority, especially when we have scarce resources. Obviously, the basic instinct of any individual is self-preservation. And when you have scarce resources, you prioritize your own. So people are feeling that there isn't enough to share because they are battling themselves in a country that is theirs. So that frustration is then manifested in terms of attacks against foreign nationals. Of course, you also have criminality as well. The second part, and equally important perhaps, is that if you look at the attacks in Pretoria, the attacks were targeted against criminals. Drug peddlers specifically, by taxi drivers who shared a space with drug sellers, right? And taxi drivers were complaining that because of this drug peddling, you have addicts coming in to buy, and in the course of buying, they also mug passengers, right? So the police are watching. They've been complaining about this. So what you have is breakdown of the law, right? In a space where taxi drivers feel that they are operating legal business, but are being contaminated, if not disturbed. Their business is being disturbed by criminals. And it so happened that the criminals are foreigners. right? So the attack against the foreigners, against these criminals, is not so much because they are foreigners, it is because they are criminals. So it is triggered by the criminality that is allowed to happen by the police. So central to all this, the porous borders, the criminality at Terfontein in Pretoria is mushrooms because of the breakdown of law and order. The police are not doing what they're meant to do. So if you say the ANC must act, the president couldn't have provided an instant solution. It's something that has been in the making for a while, but what you should see happening is tightening of borders, enforcement of law and order, having people prosecuted.
Prof, I can't not ask this question.
Yeah.
There comes reports that the President Ramaphosa, there could possibly be a sabotage of his government because the security cluster group of ministers took too long to react, and there's a comparison to Jacob Zuma's administration that had it been him, his administration, this security cluster of ministers would have acted. Is there any substance to that? Is there any truth to that in your assessment?
In the absence of what looks like firm action, people are prone to come up with all sorts of conspiracies. I don't think there's any truth to that. The cluster of ministers that are there, from what I see, are ministers that are loyal to the president. You know, of course, generally speaking, the ANC is capable of eating itself up. They have fired 2 presidents. It has very ambitious people who are willing to do anything to get into power. So I don't discard that there are maneuvers elsewhere to bring down this president within the ANC. But what you are alluding to in terms of handling this problem, I don't think it's one of them. But I can't discard it completely, mainly because this president has enemies within his own party. That much is a fact.
Prof, lots more to talk about here, but time is against us. Thank you very much for making the time to talk to us this morning. I know it's the pain of your existence.
Okay, cool.
That's a political analyst, Professor Mcebisi Dletyana. Let's